What's up, y'all? We are gonna dig into some conversation today. We got some fan mail, and when I read this to you, y'all we're gonna dig. So we got a fan mail, and it starts out with her saying she just found our YouTube channel, really loves it. She said she just watched our sex after marriage episode, which we're gonna link in the top corner. You can go watch that one. That one's a really good episode. But she says she has a question. She says, what if your husband is withholding sex from you? It's been 2 years long of asking and begging at this point. I've tried to convince him to do couples therapy, but no luck. So we're going to dig into that, y'all. But if you have not...
Wait, hold up.
Wait.
Read all that all over again.
No, it's a loaded question.
That's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question.
We're gonna pray for our sis.
For sure.
But we do want to dig into a situation like this to see if we're able to help. But read that one for me one more time.
So she says, what if your husband is withholding sex from you? It's been 2 years long of asking and begging at this point. Try to convince him to do couples therapy, but no luck.
Man, so she's been begging for sex.
It's heavy, yo. For 2 years, and that he's not willing to go to therapy.
Wow, my heart hurts for her.
For sure.
My heart honestly hurts for them because I can't imagine what a situation is like that. I'm excited that we're actually even getting fan mail, which is cool.
Me too. So everybody, you got questions? Well, we have some answers. We don't have all the answers.
We ain't got all the answers. We got some thoughts.
We have thoughts. We have experiences. But anyways, it's in the description below on YouTube. On your podcast listeners, it's in your description. It's everywhere. It's in our link tree. It says, send us a message.
Matter of fact, you can stop right now. Or no, don't hit stop. Hit pause. Hit pause. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, you can actually see it right there in the description. It says, send us a text message. Hit that right there. It won't even tell us your name.
Yeah, it comes in anonymous.
Yeah, it won't give us your full number or anything like that. So if you got something to say or something to ask and you don't really want to know, you don't want us to know who you are, it actually won't tell us any of that, but you can send us a text message like that. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the descriptions as well. You can go to the YouTube page. It's in our link tree on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. You'll see right at the top, it says, send us a text message. We most likely will not respond right back to you, but we're going to respond to you in this form. We won't say your name, but we will mention like, hey, we got this message on fan mail and we're going to talk about it. But again, this is not for gossip. This is not to exploit people. This is for us to grow together in our relationship.
And to be honest, this is why we want to do this. This is what made us rebirth the Let's Dig podcast.
Yeah.
It was genuinely because there's so many people who are going through such hard things in their relationships and they don't have a place to have this conversation. I had a conversation with one friend. She watched our Sex After Marriage podcast.
Yeah.
And she was like, dude, I've never had someone openly have this conversation about sexual things. Like, she was like, no one in the church has ever had these conversations.
Right.
And so we really, really want to make a space for conversations about relationships and how to keep them healthy and how to grow and to dig deep.
That's right.
So if you're ready, let's dig. Okay. So what would you say to this person? Like, what's your first thoughts?
Oh, I wish you wouldn't have asked me what's my first thoughts. You guys know sometimes I don't have filters. I do have filters. They're just all Pierre approved. So my first thought to a message we're getting saying that this woman has been begging her husband for sex for 2 years and he's been withholding it. So I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll be honest with you. My very first thought is he's obviously hiding something.
For sure.
I think these are my first thoughts. My first thought is he's cheating.
Right.
He's getting from somewhere else. My second thought is perhaps there's homosexuality in this situation with this guy where he doesn't want sex with you. I have a bunch of other thoughts. I think there must be a porn addiction. I think
there could be. Like, it's not all of these. It's like
there
one
could be.
or the other or a combination.
I'm just answering your question of like, what are my thoughts? Right. Again, I'm not no therapist, so I'm not telling you what he's doing. The question was, what do I think about this? I have a lot of thoughts. I think if he's into porn right now and it's an addiction that he doesn't want to talk about it. Yeah. And so right now his wife can't satisfy him because his mind and his visual of sex has been distorted from what he sees in these magazines or videos. These are just my thoughts. I'm not saying I ain't your therapist. I ain't Dr. Phil. I ain't Jesus. So I don't know your heart. I don't know your soul. I'm just sharing with you as a man. If I was withholding sex from you,
Right. For 2 years.
so it's either I'm getting it somewhere else. It's either I'm gay. It's either I've been abusing it and I can't get it from you anymore because now I have a new visual of it, or I have a new vision of what I think sex should be.
Right.
There could be something medically happening
Could be. And
where
he's just
he's
embarrassed.
embarrassed to talk about it. It could be as simple as that. It could be something
be.
like medically. But what I'm saying is these are red flags that a marriage is in trouble.
But the number one there's two. There's no sex, no intimacy, lack of intimacy, lack of sex is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
And that's a whole topic on its own. But the other one is that he's not willing to go to therapy. And that is what breaks my heart for this sister to say, like, I've been begging for 2 years. Like, we've said it before in other episodes, like, you can only fight for your marriage if both people are in the ring.
That's right. So the biggest flag in this situation is not even that he's withholding sex, is he don't want to talk about it.
Right.
He don't
He's
wanna
not
fix
willing
it.
to he's not willing to work it through. And like I mean, we have some friends that I have a friend who had made that decision of like her husband did something and she had every right to leave if she wanted to, and she chose to stand and fight for her family and for her marriage. We've had another friend who got married and the husband was not following the Lord, was not doing what was right.
Yeah.
And so she prayed, God, can you get me out of this? And he left. And she was free to be on her own. Like, so not that we're supporting divorce, but there are certain things that are biblically reasons for women that they can leave.
Yeah.
But it is a woman's choice to decide, does she want to stay and fight for her marriage?
Yeah.
And I can hear in this sister's voice, in that small message, that she wants to fight for it.
Yeah. It hurts reading that because I'm hearing the same thing you just said. I'm hearing a woman, first of all, vulnerable enough to send a message to say, my husband won't have sex with me. And then the bigger thing is I want to work it through. I want to go to therapy. The desire for therapy is a sign that you want restoration
Right.
in your relationship. And the opposite is basically literally saying the opposite. It's saying that
you don't want.
You don't want to fix it.
Right.
I heard some guy say the other day, he said, all relationships that never worked out, it happened through the conversations that never took place.
Say it one more time.
All the relationships that never worked out, if it was divorce, right? If there was infidelity, like if there was a bad breakup, it all happened through the conversations that never happened. The point is, to get to the next level, you got to talk about it.
That's so true.
We gotta
and
talk
that's
about
how
it.
we even said, let's dig.
Yeah.
Because we were literally digging through those hard
We were
conversations.
digging through it. The moment I say I don't want to talk about it, that's a red flag.
That's true. I will say to that sister though too that like she could go to therapy herself.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a lot of growth. There's always something that we can grow on our end. There's always something we can do on our end. And so if even her going to therapy by herself, she starts couples therapy by herself.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can unlock certain things and it can open him up. It can make him feel safe. It won't happen right away,
Right.
but it could slowly turn that situation around. But I would always recommend that you go, if you are a believer, that you go to a therapist that's a believer, because I ain't sitting on nobody's couch that will sit there and tell me this marriage actually isn't serving you.
Yeah.
I'm actually called to serve my marriage. My marriage does not serve me. So I can't trust nobody who's not going to lead me in the right direction. So I would advise and clearly say, like, make sure you sit on the right person's couch that you're welcoming to speak into your life. But she could do that. When we got this message, like it was really heavy.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend ever going to a therapist that has a westernized worldview, right? Versus a biblical worldview. Right. Westernized worldview is, you got to take care of yourself. Right.
Is this serving you anymore? I hate that phrase.
Like you got to look after yourself. Like you only live once, right? YOLO. Like these type of, mindsets, like it's not a biblical worldview.
Right.
Because biblical worldview is, first of all, the Bible says that for wives to submit to your husbands and for husbands to love your wife. And the Bible also talks about how our bodies is not our own anymore, right? My body is yours and your body is mine. And it tells us to not withhold sex, to not withhold
Right.
the sexual connection between a man and a woman, because it will only lead to immoral behavior. It will only lead to sin. And so it hurts reading a message like this, but I will say that to our sister that did send this message out via fan mail, I would say like what you're feeling of like, hey, going to therapy, that is a good step. We're going to pray for you. We're going to keep you in our
Yeah.
hearts. We're going to keep you in our thoughts because it's a tough place to be, especially when one wants to work on a marriage and the other one doesn't want to work on a marriage.
For
Last
sure.
thing you want to do is get in the ring with someone who doesn't want to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These are red flags that a relationship is in trouble.
Yeah. I think another red flag is just that distance or like avoidance
Yeah.
when, and we even talked about how like we're intentional of deciding to take one car instead of two cars or
Mm.
like being together. When we were in rough seasons, there was much more of like, I'm just going to go run to the store. I'm just going to go to the gym. There was a lot of separation. Because it felt better to just be apart than being forced to be in that same room or do the things together because there was so much tension.
Mhm.
And so it felt better to just be like, hey, I'm going to go run some errands and just be by myself for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That was so much more space.
Speaking of which, it's funny that you even mentioned that because you remember a couple of Thursdays ago. So every Thursday, we all try to leave the house together, one car, we drop off the kids, and we go to the gym together. So our schedules are all different throughout the week. Like most of the days, I'm up between 5 and 5:30. I'm at the gym or something like that. Later on, after I have like meditation time, 6:30, I'm in the gym. And then I'll come back and take the kids to school. Thursdays is a little bit different. It's lighter days. Today's a Thursday. For those of you guys that don't know, we record our podcasts on Thursdays. And one Thursday, I was just like, yo, how come we always get into arguments on Thursdays? Like, you guys, Thursdays we'll drop off the kids and all of a sudden, like I'll say something or Dan Lee will say something and it's just a light conversation. All of a sudden, like we're arguing or fighting or something. And it happened one time. I remember 3 or 4 Thursdays back to back, probably 3 Thursdays back to back.
Yeah.
On that third Thursday, I'm like, you know what? This is enough. Man, we just going to go to the gym separate.
And you know what I said?
And Dan Lee checked me.
I said, I'll be damned if that's the reason why. Can
Right.
I say that? Will that flag us? It's just damn. But like, I was like, no, we can decide to go in separate cars if we need to for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I will not say that giving us space just so that we don't fight is the answer.
Yeah.
Like for me, it did kind of like, it triggered me. Is that the right word of like, no, we're not going back
Yeah.
to that.
Well, it was
That's what it felt like.
It was a flag.
It was a red flag. It was a very red flag of
Because
like, we've worked way too hard to get to this point.
Yeah.
That's not our solution.
And I was tired of us like getting into these little tick for tacks, little poking argument.
And then we never get to work out because we'd sit in the car at the gym parking lot and we would be like trying to work through something or argue through something. And then we'd be like, well, our pre-workout is out of our system.
Yeah,
like,
we just drop off the kids and it's a light conversation about what do we think about Jordan braiding his hair or something. It'd be like something random.
They were not like
And all of a
anything
sudden,
big.
like we're so passionate about it. And we're sitting in the car, like, both of us got to go pee now. The pre-workout is done through our body. We're sitting outside the gym for like an hour. And at that point, it's like, you know what? I don't even feel like working out. And there was a Thursday. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. On Thursdays, let's just take separate cars. And I appreciate Danny Lee for doing this. This was a red flag because it was her saying like, no, like we start that pattern. Where else are we going to do the same thing in our marriage?
Yeah.
These are red flags. Those are small indicators. And so there's going to be some times in a relationship where one person is going to see a red flag and the other person isn't going to see the red flag.
That's true.
You got to trust each other enough to know that both people are in this ring fighting for each other, right? We say this all the time. We're not fighting with each other.
Right.
We are fighting for each other. So there's times I don't see a flag and you saw a flag and I was like, all right, good point. So we still keep up with it every single Thursday. Now we just tiptoe, kind of walk on some eggshells. I tread lightly. No, I'm not playing.
You just said, no, I'm not playing.
I'm not playing.
He's like, I'm telling the truth.
No, I'm not playing that. This is true right here. This is all the truth, guys.
He's like, I'm
guys,
sending the flag. I'm
if you
sending
guys
the flag.
if you guys can see me, I am blinking 3 times for help. No,
You're such
I'm
a
playing.
jerk.
We still ride with each other every single Thursday, but we're just more mindful now of each other.
Yeah.
You know. But that was recently a flag where we caught
Yeah,
right
that's a big
away.
one. Okay, what's another red flag?
I don't know. No, I'm playing. Like, I don't know if everyone's like listening. Okay, had this thought right here. Okay, there's a bunch of red flags, right? You know, one obvious one, I think people don't really like to really talk about it. It's emotional distance. Let's elaborate.
I think that goes into that like space though. Of
yeah, that's what it
like-
is. It's a sense of detachment or difference towards each other where one or both partners feel more like roommates than a couple.
Yeah,
That's a
for
flag,
sure.
especially in a marriage. Like there should be an emotional connection. There should be this excitement or this enjoyment of the other person's presence in the room and that intimacy, emotionally connected, feeling like you love that person all the time.
It's a big thing for women to feel that closeness and that emotional connection.
Yeah.
And that we kind of decide if we close that off or if we want to like let that connection in.
And I get it, man. Sometimes there are days where I'm like, I'll be honest with you, like I'm not feeling you.
What is that? But what does that mean? Like I'm on your nerves or like, what does that mean?
That's the only option.
Listen, guys, when you talk to Pierre, you will find out that if he says a phrase and if I ask him to elaborate on it, he'll just look at me and be like, there's no other words to say.
I'll be like, that's what I just said, right?
Wait, we had the conversation the other day and actually it was a fight. It was an argument. But we had a discussion for like 45 minutes and the whole time you were like, I can't say it any other way. These are the same 4 words I said at the beginning of this conversation. Like Pierre does not change his words.
Well, it's like I thought very intentionally of the words I wanted to use and I used my words. And you're like, what are you trying to say? I was like, I literally don't know any other way to say it. Like my vocabulary is not that, large. So I'm like, bruh, like there's no other way to say it. Well, you're gonna have to say it another way. I'm like, babe, we're gonna need to call in Jesus to come down from heaven and interpret this because I don't know no other way to say this. But yeah, I get it, y'all. There's some days where you're just not feeling each other. Like depending on that day,
true.
depending on
the stress of life.
Those aren't indicators that your relationship is failing.
Right.
But when it's frequent, when you don't want out of it.
Don't want out of what?
When you don't want out of that feeling.
Oh.
Like meaning like
when
you're
the
okay
space
with it.
doesn't bother you.
When
That's
the
very
space does not bother you in your relationship, red flag.
Red flag.
This is an issue.
For sure.
Your relationship is in trouble.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, we talked about it at the beginning, but when only one of you will go to therapy, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That's huge
crazy.
red flag.
That's crazy. So what's funny is like all these things that we're talking about and mentioning, like I've felt them before many years ago when we were struggling. Like many years ago when we were struggling, like I remember there being like emotional distance from us.
Yeah.
And like I remember the feeling of being okay with it.
Oh God, sometimes I was okay with it. Sometimes I wasn't. Remember that one time I was devastated. We were outside. I don't remember if we were walking with the kids and you were going to walk somewhere else, like go to Target or I was going home or whatever. And I said, I love you to you. And you turned and walked away from me. And I like started boohoo crying and you came back and said something and you're like, why are you crying? And I said, because I said I love you and you didn't say anything back. Come to find out,
I was like,
you didn't hear me.
I was like, when did you say it?
But honestly, it was a moment that I was like, that's it, we're done. Like it felt very final of like, I said, I love you, even in a tough season. And it felt like you chose to not say it back to me.
That's wild.
And that hurt. But like, there were times where I was okay with being mad at you. I was fine with us having distance. I was fine with like being irritated with you the whole time. Like, ugh, like, you could just sit in it. And I feel like that's something that has changed with me as I've gotten older. Mm-hmm. I don't like that about myself and I've had other friends say that as well, that the older you get, the more you're okay with sitting in that like anger and that resentment towards
Mm.
each other. But it's obviously a huge red flag
Yeah.
for your
Yeah.
relationship.
Anger was that one was the one that bothered me. I hated feeling anger. If you guys know this already. We love the Bible and we live by the Bible. We have a biblical worldview, right? We have a biblical view on our marriage, biblical view on money, biblical view on kids, all the above. How we live our lives, how we love on others. What the Bible says, that's what we walk by. And one of my favorite stories in the Bible is, early on when Cain and Abel, right? Cain and Abel, one brother got jealous of another brother because they both gave different offerings and one killed the other one, right? But when God confronted Cain, he said, "Why are you angry?"
Mm,
Right? That's what God said to Cain. He was like, "Why are you angry?"
right.
And Cain was like, "Well, I gave you offering and you didn't accept it." And God said to him, "Well, if you do your best, then I'll accept you." But he's like, "If you don't," here's what he said. He was like, God was saying to him how this anger that you have inside of you will open
Mm,
yourself up for a whole nother demonic force to take hold of you,
wow.
right? So, like for us, we know that anger leads to sin.
Right.
Anger leads a lot of times in marriages, we've seen it, to someone doing something that they regret.
Right.
Anger leads to infidelity. We've seen that before,
Yeah.
right? I've heard stories. We've watched movies and shows where someone was just mad and upset at someone, and they're like, "Ugh!" And I have a buddy of mine. Like their marriage is no longer a thing, right?
Mm,
It's completely dismantled. But I remember anger happened, jealousy happened,
yeah.
and one cheated on the other, literally out of spite. Anger led them to do
Jesus.
that. And that was one of the things that many years ago, when we had to go through therapy, before we went through therapy, where I started getting comfortable with the emotional distance, anger was the wedge in between me and you.
Yeah.
And every time I got angry, I started to think,
Mm,
man, I should just step out on her. Man, I would entertain
right.
messages on IG with other girls that would just DM or for something completely random. And
Right.
for me, I think about,
Where can
what
I
else,
take
what
this?
else can we talk about?
That's
Because I
crazy.
was very angry with you at the time
Yeah.
and I was okay with it. Anger, emotional distance, sitting in that emotional distance, being okay with it is a red flag that your marriage needs help.
I think another one that can really, really poison it is like feeling unappreciated, especially for mothers, for women, for wives. I mean, no, I can't say especially because you guys probably feel that way too, actually, now that I'm saying it.
Right.
Either way, someone in
Just
the
in
marriage
general.
feeling unappreciated
Yeah.
can really, really grow that resentment. And it's the job of the other person to like acknowledge those moments. Like for you, you always take care of the cars and like, or you take care of things outside of the house. Granted, we've talked about it too of like, it doesn't fill my love tank, but I do see how much effort you put into it. I do
Yeah.
appreciate what you do to think about us and to take care of us in like kind of like the little details that kind of add up. The things I actually just don't think about, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah.
But like acknowledging it and appreciating each other in those moments, it can really tear down that resentment and bring that emotional closeness together.
Yeah. Yeah. Another one I think is a flag too is, and this one's a big one that I had to literally put in God's hand, is being self-sufficient and enjoying it, flaunting it in your partner's face that you don't need them, that you can do this without them.
Mm,
We have someone in our lives that many years ago we sat down with them and we're talking to them and talking to them about their relationship with their spouse. And we kept on hearing that person say, "I don't need that person. I don't need him. I don't need him. I don't need him." And we're sitting there saying, like, you don't need him. Like, what's going on?
mhm.
Last thing someone in a relationship that someone needs is to not feel
Needed.
needed.
Yeah.
And imagine if I always had to talk about it's like, I mean, babe, I don't really need you. Or like if we weren't together, I'd be completely fine. Or I can take care of myself. Right. That's self-sufficient. Some people say, well, you don't want to be codependent. We're not talking about codependency. We're not
Right.
talking about being an enabler. We're not talking about
Right.
of like narcissistic behavior and dangling certain things in front of you to where you need me. I'm not talking about that. If that's you, you still need therapy too.
Oh, sure.
Right. But I'm talking about in a marriage where you complete me, where I'm 100% whole by myself, but you make me better.
Yeah.
That not like, I don't want to imagine life without you.
Yeah.
When you can start imagining what life would be like without the other person, and you start doing stuff, you start hiding money, you start doing stuff all by yourself. Like you start, no, I got it. No, I can take it. No, I got it. Those, I won't say are full red flags, but those are indicators that you think and feel like you can do this all by yourself. Then it makes me start to think, then why'd you get married? Was it just to have kids? Was it
Right.
just for financial stability? Like what I'm saying is there's been times in our relationships many years ago before therapy where we both at a certain time had to start entertaining the idea of like what life would be like on our own.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling of just thinking about like, well, I could do this. I could do this all by myself. Like to me, I'm like, you meditate on thoughts like that long enough,
Oh, for sure.
pretty soon you'll get to the point where you just feel like this person, why are they even in your life anymore?
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. When you keep saying it of like, I don't need you. Some people will be like, oh, I don't need you, but I want you.
Right.
And I don't even think that suffices it
I don't
either.
feel like that's healthy
Like
either.
that's just a saying. Like that doesn't make it like, oh, he wants me. Not like, nah, no.
Right.
Like I actually want someone to need me,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. Like we have this culture of relationships and movies and romance and all these things. Like I want to be with someone who actually does need me.
Yeah.
Like that needs me in their life, that wants me to be there every day. Like I want that kind of thing. I don't want someone to be like, I don't need you, but I want you. Like,
Yeah.
nah, please.
Yeah. And just the want is needed too.
It's
Like,
both.
like you want to be wanted, because wanted
Yeah.
is more of a desire of like, no, it's a choice,
Mm-hmm.
right? I feel like saying want it's a choice. I
Yeah.
choose you. I want you.
Right.
Needing is necessary too as well.
Yeah.
Needed is more of just like, it's like, I can't do this without you.
Yeah.
So you have to be the one. That's
Yeah.
why I need you. But wanting is saying like, but I want you to be the one anyway.
Right.
Like, you know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
it's both.
They both work
like
together.
both aspects. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna throw out just a few more. I had a few notes. I mean, we could talk about this all day long,
We
man.
really could.
I mean, lack of trust, right?
For sure.
That right there, I don't think we even need to talk about that one. Avoidance is a big one, right? Avoiding spending time together, preferring to be alone or with others rather than with your spouse.
Yeah, but that's what we talked about of like choosing to go run errands without you.
Yeah.
That's that avoidance. That's
But
like, nah,
yeah.
I'm on my own. Or ooh, I gotta go hang out with so and so. Or I gotta go over here.
Right. Oh, it's big, man. It's
It's
big. We talked
big.
about it earlier, right? It's like avoiding conversations,
Yeah.
avoiding topics, not wanting to talk about something.
That's so true.
Those are
I
flags.
think that
boy.
there are some things that you can do to like in each of these, there are little steps and little tools that you could do
Yeah.
to rectify them before it's too late. Because in the same sense of us talking about these red flags, they do not mean you're going to get a divorce.
Sure.
They are just flags of like, hey, you need to do something to change the trajectory of where you're headed right now. And so I heard someone the other day say like in a healthy marriage, allowing more space to ask questions of like, hey, what are you missing in this marriage right now?
Mm.
Actually, the person said you could not find a couple that ended up in divorce that could say they both asked each other that question. And I was like, dang, that's true.
Yeah.
If we're both saying, okay, how are you feeling in this marriage? And what do you need from me? Actually, I hate when you do that sometimes where you're like, we're arguing and he'll be like, what do you need from me? I'm like, oh, it makes me feel like you won or something.
I did.
But he's like, yes, that was me. But
I think it's because like, this, I don't even have words to describe like being in a marriage. Like it's not a selfish position. If you are fully selfish and only think about yourself and
Yeah.
you don't want to consider other people, you shouldn't be in a marriage. because in a marriage is to die to yourself.
Yeah.
It's sacrifice, man.
Serving each
It's
other.
serving each other. So at the end of the day, like even earlier, we had a conversation,
Yep.
and right away I was like, okay, I'll make the change. I'll make the adjustment.
And I said, my first thing I said to you was, I'll try to do better on that.
Right. And so that's very important. I think in relationships, in marriages, man, like to have like a selfless, perspective is very important to make
Yeah.
that happen, man. It's big, to say, man, I've heard said this in other podcasts, is like to say, well, I'm sorry, that's just how I am. That's just who you married. Like it's like, man, those are just ignorant statements to say that's just who you married.
And a lot of those factors that we want to defend of like, that's just who I am, they're actually not truly who we are. It's not
Yeah.
our character.
Yeah.
It's our mannerisms. It's our habits.
Yeah.
You're not trying to change who Danny Lee is as a character.
Yeah.
You're actually just showing a flaw of mine that I may feel like I need to defend or
Totally.
argue about, and it feels uncomfortable. But actually, if I were to say after 14 years of marriage, I've actually grown in some spaces
Right.
that I needed to.
Yeah.
And only someone who was in love with me and could love me gently could grow me in those spaces.
Yeah. And ultimately, the purpose of this podcast is for us to be able to dig deep, not just to get through the surface, but it's to go all the way down to the core, to where it hits your character, the motive behind why we do what we do, right? The motive behind why we're in the relationships that we're in. I'll share this, man. This is the last one that I'll share as far as like a red flag. Well, I had two. One is
You said the last one, and then you're like, wait, but two.
No, I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share this one because this one's a big one. Because this happens on the outside, but it really determines what's on the inside. I think it's a loss in intimacy,
Mm,
like loss in intimacy.
yeah.
Like today we was driving and I put my hand on your hand.
Yeah.
And to me, I feel like some people are like, bro, that's really little. Well, no, because who I am by nature, I'm not a toucher,
Right.
right? But for me, I know you are, and I'm close enough to you, emotionally connected enough to you to know how much that fills your tank. And I
Yeah.
know it did. I can feel you like all kinds of walls are coming down on her the moment I put my hand across that.
All you felt was a sigh.
That
but you
sigh was
knew
a
that-
big sigh.
That was
They
so-
almost reported it as an earthquake here in California.
You are so.
I told you guys. I already told you guys. Like so, but like I'm saying is like
I have a hair on my face.
a loss in intimacy is an indicator that a relationship is struggling.
It's true.
Could
It's a red
maybe
flag.
failing, especially to be okay with it and not want to talk about it. They all work together, man. It's a big old ecosystem, man.
It really is.
This conversation we could talk about this all day long.
We could. So we just wanted to say, here's some red flags. And we really, truly are praying for our friend who wrote us, our sister. We're praying for your marriage.
Yep.
We're praying for wisdom. Get some good people around you that can walk you through the season. It's not going to be a lot of people. It's going to be one or two people
Yep.
that you can trust with some information like this, and that they can guide you to make the right decisions for you. Because as much as God hates divorce, he also hates his daughter being in a loveless marriage and a marriage that doesn't serve her, in the sense of it doesn't bring her to her fullness. Like in a marriage like that, a woman does get broken down after a long time.
Yeah.
By not being needed by her husband in an intimate way. Like that's I can't imagine what that does to a person's mind, spirit. That's heartbreaking to me.
Mhm.
And so I encourage a lot of women when I talk to them and they're in hard marriages, there's a real balance of knowing like, hey, you did get married, but is this what God has for you? Like you're a daughter of the king.
Yeah.
There is a standard. There are certain things that he would want for you. And there are biblical reasons that give you a reason that you can leave. And so I would just really encourage you to find those good people around you, one or two women, maybe they're older than you, that can really, really walk you through this season
Mhm.
of what it looks like and what can be the best decision for you and your husband. Because the number one greatest outcome would be restoration. But if that's not available, okay, what's next? And so we're really truly praying for you. Thank you for trusting us and
Yeah.
sending us that fan mail. And for all of you, if you guys are going through something or you are in a tough season, like we would love to hear from you. We would love to encourage you and then pray for you as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to the fellas real quick just for a minute. Fellas, it's time for us to man up. It's time for us to be men. It's time for us to be the leaders of our household, the leaders of our relationships. Now, it's not some kingship, right? It's not some situation where you get to be the boss. Matter of fact, you get to be the servant of the house. You
Mm,
get to serve your wives. You get to serve your children. You get to serve those that are around you. Jesus said this. He said, if you want to be the greatest among your people, serve them
mhm.
as if you were their slave. Jesus was like, I didn't come to be served. I
Yeah,
came to serve. The
that's right.
King of Kings stepped down off of his throne, all to be lowered and to serve the people. So to accept the calling of being a man, to be the priest, to be the leader of your household, it's not about bossing people around. It's about serving them. If your wife feels like there's distance there, if you're dating and you feel like you haven't been able to work things out with your significant other, with your girl, bro, step up, man. Ask better questions. Ask your girl, ask your wife, what do you need from me? What
Yeah.
are you noticing from me? Anything that you need from me to adjust, right? Because at the end of the day, man, we're the ones with the shoulders for her to cry on. We're the ones that most people always grow up saying they had daddy issues. There's a few people, there's a small percentage of people that say they had mommy issues, is daddy issues. Why is that the case? Because more is expected of us men to serve those that are around us.
So
And so
true.
I want to encourage every single one of you guys that are in relationships right now, man, step up to it, man. Be the leader that God has called you to be. Like my wife just said, find some therapy, find a pastor, find a leader, find accountability,
Yeah.
and let's do life so much better, man. Life gets better, man, when relationships do. So we love you guys.
We love y'all.
Let's keep on digging, and we'll see y'all next time.